All right, today we're jumping into a fantastic historical detective story. It's all about how modern archaeology might actually be proving a key event from one of the world's most ancient epics, the Mahabharata. This is going to be fun.
Our whole investigation really kicks off with this one simple but really powerful idea. Ancient stories, they might stretch the truth about battles or make heroes seem larger than life, but they tend to be brutally honest about catastrophes. A flood, an earthquake, a famine, that kind of stuff leaves a scar, not just on the land, but on the memory of a people.
And that leads us right to the big question. The Mahabharata is this huge, sweeping epic, full of gods and demons and incredible battles. But what if, buried inside all of that, there's a story of a city wiped out by a flood? And what if that part is a real historical memory that's been passed down for 3,000 years?
So, to figure this out, we have to start with the first piece of the puzzle. We have to look at the clue that was left behind in the ancient texts themselves, a clue that tells us about the fate of this legendary capital city.
So, the story goes something like this. According to the Mahabharata and some later texts called the Puranas, the great city of Hastinapura, the capital of the Kuru kingdom, was just obliterated by a massive flood from the Ganga River. It was so bad, the survivors had no choice. They had to abandon their home and move the entire capital to a new city, Kaushambi.
But here's what's so fascinating. It's the way the story is told. There are no angry gods throwing lightning bolts, no divine curses. The text just reports it. It's treated like a natural disaster, a straightforward environmental catastrophe. And that sounds a lot less like a legend and a whole lot more like a historical record.
It's a really compelling story, right? But for centuries, that's all it was, a story. Then, in the 1950s, an archaeologist named B.B. Lal decided, hey, let's go look for the truth in the ground. He started digging at the ancient site of Hastinapura, searching for actual physical proof of this legendary flood.
And as his team dug down, they uncovered these distinct layers of history, almost like pages in a book. Way down deep, there was an early settlement. Right above that, a more advanced city, a culture we know by its very unique pottery, the painted gray ware, or PGW culture. But then they hit something really dramatic, a sudden, complete break. The city was just abandoned, and it wasn't reoccupied until much, much later. So the question is, why?
Well, the evidence was right there in the dirt. At the very top of that painted gray ware layer, they found a textbook case of a massive flood. I'm talking thick layers of silt that could only have come from a river covering everything. Clear signs of water erosion, the ruins of collapsed buildings. It was an open and shut case. This city was destroyed by water. Okay, so we have archaeological proof of a huge flood that destroyed the city. But here's the million-dollar question. Did it happen at the right time? This is the moment of truth, where our two timelines, one from the ancient epic and one from the soil, have to sync up.
Using scientific dating, the archaeologists were able to pin down the date of this flood layer, this destruction event, pretty precisely. It happened somewhere between 1100 and 800 BCE. Now, you're going to want to remember that date.
And here it is. This is the aha moment of the whole investigation. The timeline that you can piece together from the epic's own family trees. It places the Kuru kings in Hastinapura during that exact same period. The text and the earth are telling the exact same story. About the exact same time, the convergence is it's stunning.
This discovery also explains why the Kurus had to pack up and move, just like the story says. You have to remember, this was the early Iron Age. A city like Hastinapura didn't have massive flood walls or modern engineering. When a flood of this scale hits, you can't just rebuild. For the entire kingdom to survive, the capital had to be relocated. It really wasn't a choice. It was about survival.
So what's the big takeaway here? What does all of this mean? Well, this isn't just some fun little coincidence. The fact that these two completely independent sources of evidence, the ancient text and modern archaeology, line up so perfectly forces us to look at the Mahabharata in a whole new light.
Think about it like this. Myths and legends, they usually remember the good stuff, right? The glorious victories, the amazing heroes, gods helping out. But history remembers the bad stuff too. It remembers the defeats, the disasters, the times you were forced to flee your own home. And the memory of the Hastinapura flood? It feels a lot more like that. It feels like real, traumatic history.
So let's just lay out the case one last time.
We have 4 perfect points that connect. A specific city named in the text, Hastinapura, a specific event described, a river flood, a specific archaeological layer showing that exact flood, and a textual tradition whose timeline matches the archaeology perfectly. I mean, that is a remarkably strong chain of evidence.
And that all leads to this pretty powerful conclusion. When you have this much evidence all pointing in the same direction, you really can't just write off the epic as pure fiction anymore. To do that isn't skepticism, it's just ignoring the facts. The story of the Hastinapura flood seems to be a real historical event, preserved for thousands of years.
So it really makes you think, doesn't it? The next time you read an ancient myth, maybe ask yourself, beyond all the gods and monsters, what real human stories, stories of disaster, of survival, of memory, are just waiting to be rediscovered? What other histories are hiding right there in plain sight?